Welcome to another edition of Forecast Lab. We've got another hurricane out there in the Atlantic. This time it's Ernesto, moving to the northwest. Let's take a look at the NHC graphics. There it is, Hurricane Ernesto, a low-end Category 1 hurricane. At 5 p.m. it was steady at 75 miles an hour for the sustained winds, 989 millibars, and moving northwest at 16 miles an hour. And it passed over Puerto Rico last night. There's the imagery as it headed towards the island located right there. More than 740,000 people were without power when we checked just a couple of hours ago, reported by the Puerto Rico Emergency Portal System. The power there was extensively damaged after Hurricane Maria back in 2017 and has never fully recovered. Peak gusts there, only 57 knots at Roosevelt Roads, which is located about right there, and San Juan. They only reported 31 knots. So if there's a full-fledged hurricane there, that island probably will be in serious trouble. A little bit of good news, it is moving to the north away from the U.S. It will go through a major hurricane phase around Friday and then approaching Bermuda on Saturday. There could be some threat of a direct strike on that island. Then it will move to the north, mostly affecting the Canadian Maritimes around early next week. We may see some problems at places like St. John's, along the Newfoundland coast as well, and maybe even Nova Scotia, but that's a ways down the road, so we'll see about that. The rest of the tropics, let me see if I can pull that up. I don't think I saw any major problems. No development in the Cape Verde region, so this time of year, that's certainly a good thing. Here's a quick look at the track of Ernesto. According to the deterministic GFS, you can see that that moves to the north. Bermuda, where is that located? Right there. It's that little speck. Looks like a bit of dirt on the screen. Anyway, that storm will head pretty much right up to Bermuda, just grazing the island, and you can see that recurves to the northeast. So it stays pretty clear of the U.S. East Coast. There's this afternoon's surface analysis without me in the way. We do see 100s all through Texas and Oklahoma. High pressure moving into the northeastern U.S. This is part of a block of cold polar air moving out of Canada, pushing this little stationary front all the way down towards the Florida Panhandle, and it's just going to become stagnant and just kind of sit there for at least several days. The pure tropical air moving up into North Texas, dew points rising into the 70s. And let's take a look up in the northeastern U.S. There is some wildfire smoke coming in. I did go ahead and outline that. See all that brown up near the top? That is wildfire smoke all the way into the Canadian Arctic, almost to Iqaluit. The temperatures have come down in northern Canada. We had a heat wave back on Monday. Temperatures were up close to 90 degrees around the Arctic Circle, but temperatures falling into the 50s. Some of that cold air making it down into the northeastern U.S. with this northerly flow and bringing that little plume of smoke down. So places like Maine, Vermont, they could see a pretty smoky, hazy sunset tonight. Cooler air through the Great Lakes region, temperatures rather pleasant in the 80s. Texas, of course, on fire as usual, up to the 100s, looking for 104 today at Wichita Falls, located right there. They're at 102 right now. Abilene, looking for 102, and they're at 100. But a little bit of gusty wind to bring some relief, maybe like a blast furnace, but, at least it's something. In the southwestern U.S., no heat warnings. So that's a bit of good news. Phoenix expecting 109, Las Vegas 105, and Tucson, located right up in here, 99 degrees. There is a fire weather watch for Saturday for the northern and central Sierras. They're expecting strong pressure gradients, low relative humidities, winds up to 40 miles an hour. So could be some fire problems there. And heading up into the northwest, red flag warnings across much of south central Oregon for today from Klamath Falls to Ontario, Idaho. Lightning-induced wildfires could be an issue. Outflow winds up to 45 miles an hour. Let's take a quick look out there in the Pacific. Weak Pacific high, 1028, 1024 millibars. This time of year, we want to be seeing 1030s. And that's kind of been a deficit all season, kind of an abnormal year. The cold air still covering much of Alaska at this time, some recovery of warmer air, but they are going to be getting into strong northerly flow on Thursday, and that means strong downslope flow along the northern slopes of the Alaska Range from Denali National Park to Fort Greely. And then just a quick look up in Canada, cool conditions up north. They've not really been affected much by that heat wave. And then down south, of course, the wildfires still going. Severe thunderstorm watch in northeastern British Columbia, around Fort Nelson right there. Strong gusty winds, large hail expected today, and another area of possible heavy rain and thunderstorms down around Ottawa and Montreal, all the way up to Trois-Rivières. Then back into the prairies, this area is under numerous air quality advisories for wildfire smoke. And that's been kind of a recurring theme all summer. And here's what we have for the upper air chart this afternoon. One feature I want to point out is this subtropical high nosing into Arizona. That's kind of shut down the monsoon pattern. You can see the wind flow is out of the north, and we want to see that out of the south to really get that monsoon cranking there. There's the visible satellite imagery. You can see we're not really dealing with very much. This little thunderstorm tried to get going, put out a little orphan anvil, and then just dissipated. So most of what we have in the higher elevations is towering cumulus, maybe a stray shower, but overall, this is a fairly suppressed pattern. Also a lobe of the subtropical high across Texas, Louisiana, so another area of fair hot weather reminiscent of last August. And there's a little signature there with that hurricane moving to the north. Much of the continental North American region was under the influence of a large omega block that started breaking up, and now we're left with this ridge across the Great Lakes into Quebec and starting to open up this kind of a split flow pattern, one to the south across California into the prairies, or I should say the plains. Prairies is Canada. And there's the northern stream across British Columbia up to Hudson Bay. Let's see what's in store. You can see this subtropical high pushing into Arizona. Not much change back there into Texas going into Thursday and Friday. But gradually we consolidate this large high-pressure area aloft, upper-level high, across New Mexico for Friday. And that puts Texas under kind of a weak northerly flow. And you can see the monsoon pattern starting to reestablish itself. It will start building as we go into Saturday and Sunday, and you can see that as we get into early next week. There it is, southerly flow. Ridging, or I should say a trough and upper level low off the west coast for Monday. Hudson Bay low, getting established up there for late next week, and this is going to be the last frame I have. Large Hudson Bay low pattern, northwesterly flow into the Great Lakes area, large subtropical high across Texas, so that heat wave we have here will persist. Looking at a potential powder keg situation across parts of the Central Plains, Omaha, Kansas City, Topeka, this area right here, all hazards are possible, including a low-end risk of tornadoes, especially around Omaha, Lincoln, and St. Joseph. And there it is, the mesoscale discussion issued from the Storm Prediction Center, basically from Salina to Omaha for this afternoon and evening, looking for storm development there north of this warm front, and basically just the usual story of destabilization with peak heating, and there's enough bulk shear to allow for organized convection, and we're looking for the possibility of strong storms with hail, strong outflow winds, and a few isolated tornadoes. So let's take a look at the GFS deterministic forecast. This starts out for this evening, and there's those storms in Nebraska. So this whole area will be active. well into tonight. And we go into the overnight hours. You can see an MCS pushing into the Corn Belt, and there's tomorrow morning moving into Illinois. And we will see regeneration of storms along this warm front going into tomorrow afternoon. And there's some of that activity right there. This isn't really a precise forecast, but, it's just kind of a general guidance product. And more storms possible along this cold front into Oklahoma and Texas. Texas itself will be warming up by a few degrees as that subtropical high continues to build. Looking for 101 at DFW, 100 at San Antonio, and 98 at Oklahoma City. And back in that frontal zone, we're looking at a slight risk from the Storm Prediction Center across Illinois and Missouri. That includes Chicago, Davenport, St. Louis, Kansas City. The main risk will be strong convective winds and hail. A few supercells are possible. In the northwestern U.S., widespread showers and thunderstorms across Oregon and Idaho. Lightning-induced wildfires may be a problem there, and there is that fire weather watch for Oregon. Then we go into Friday. The system very slowly moves to the east. There's the afternoon hours, and there's Friday evening. The triple point located around Cincinnati. Occluded front up to the north. We're looking for a marginal risk of severe storms in the eastern Great Lakes, down to the Ohio River region, down into Tennessee, northern Mississippi and Alabama, a little bit unusual for this time of year. This marginal risk includes Detroit, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Nashville, Chattanooga. All those areas could see some severe weather. And that's mostly going to be associated with the increased bulk shears through this region, but we're not really expecting the kind of vertical shears that support tornadoes like what we get in the springtime. Some of the first indications of a return to monsoon conditions in Arizona, around Douglas, about a 30% chance for Friday evening, and numerous showers and storms up here in this stagnant frontal zone in western Montana. Then we go into Saturday. That system continues pushing into the northeastern U.S. very slowly. Showers all up and down the Appalachians, the best chances in Buffalo, Syracuse, Charleston, West Virginia, not South Carolina, Pittsburgh, the Tri-Cities, Asheville, all of that. A very hot weekend in Texas, 104 on Sunday at DFW, 103 on Saturday. And we will see those showers developing on the Mogollon Rim. Let's take a look at that. There it is, pretty widespread. And you'll notice I kind of outlined this little bubble high. That's a little meso high being indicated by the GFS model. That signifies organized convection developing into these large clusters along the ridges and mountaintops. Kind of a repeat for Sunday, kind of focusing more on the central Rockies, not so much down south. Best chances will be in the Four Corners area and in Colorado and Utah. This weak frontal system continues moving into the East Coast region, showers and storms all the way down to the Carolinas. And we go into Monday, stagnant frontal zone through the Gulf Coast region into the central U.S., looking for 103 at DFW, also 103 at San Antonio and Austin, and 108 at Childress. And Tuesday is going to be even warmer. There's the weather map for Tuesday afternoon, maybe a little bit of relief there in Oklahoma, but it is going to be hot in Texas. We may be approaching the 110-degree mark in places like Abilene, Graham, Throckmorton, Anson, and Knox City. A bit of drying in the southwestern monsoon area. The activity concentrates in the central plains. And we go into the rest of the week. We'll just kind of take you through that. Active frontal system right through here. MCS in the Corn Belt, as we typically see this time of year. Also active in Colorado. And that's going to be the last frame we have. So most of the best chances for rain right there in the heartland in the central U.S. Okay. And briefly, we can talk a little bit about severe weather patterns. You've probably seen this setup. This is a dry line along the cap rock, and we see that often during the springtime. The area where storms develop, pretty much right out ahead of the dry line. You can see the flow here is zonal. We don't have that kind of pattern. Okay, so what else is there? The next type of pattern is going to be this one. Yeah, that looks familiar. Looks almost like what we have here on Friday and Saturday. However, we're lacking a lot of the good instability because it's August. You know, we do have the moisture and some instability, but we're lacking a lot of cold air aloft to give us those steep lapse rates, and the upper level flow not quite as dynamic, and we're not getting the strong backing of the surface flow, so not really a setup for widespread severe weather. But some severe weather is possible. That's going to be concentrated in the warm sector. And there's also some possibility of stuff. This graphic doesn't show it very well, but along the warm front and near the triple point, I would include that area also. And you can see this other area close to the occlusion and the cold core low. Some other possibilities for severe weather along these stationary fronts. Does that look familiar? Yeah, I would say it does. We've had this kind of persist through the majority of those charts that you saw. Now, we don't really have an active dry line because we don't have strong southwesterlies. This also shows a northwesterly flow, and I don't think we quite have that right now. But when we do have what's shown on right here with strong northwesterly flow, strong dynamics, and cyclogenesis in the high plains, that can get northwesterly flow storms going, and they feed off of this moisture and that boundary. So we don't really have this particular pattern going on right now, but that little front is somewhat of a nucleus for storm formation. And this is kind of an early spring pattern. You've seen this with the Philadelphia, Mississippi tornado, and there were quite a few others. I forgot all the names, but yeah, that was back in 2011. Pattern just like this, deep upper level low, strong moisture, strong instability, strong backing of the flow, maybe even more so than it shows right here. And that can be a big problem for the southeastern U.S. And I think that is, oh yeah, the upslope flow in Colorado. That's another big one. We do have some of that going on. Most of the best lift and instability, convective instability, is going to be north of the frontal zone. Don't quite have that pattern in Colorado. You can see that there is a frontal boundary, but it's kind of to the north and more on the lower terrain. And Colorado itself, Pueblo, Colorado Springs, getting a little bit of downslope flow here, so a little bit drier. But north of that front, this can be an area where we see enhanced dew points. So if I was forecasting on that day, I would probably be concerned about that area just north of the polar front. So similar to this, but you're going to be looking at that surface low, the easterlies just to the north into the northwest of that surface low. And of course, there can be other areas out ahead of the dry line and along the stationary front. Okay, and those are going to be the key areas of storm formation. So hopefully you learned a little bit of something today. And that will be all for this edition of Forecast Lab. I want to thank our newest Patreon supporters, Bill Mullen, Mike Lammers, and Roger Calleja. Hopefully I got that pronounced right. Remember, if you want to keep this program going and if you're enjoying all this content that you're seeing, we do need your support, and you can go to patreon.com, this website link right here, and that will get you set up, and you'll get those private Monday videos. All right, hope you have a great Wednesday evening. We'll see you back here again on Friday, and we'll see what's new with Hurricane Ernesto. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.